Good morning, everyone. My name is Sergio Garcia, Regional Business Development Manager for Maritime Americas. Thank you, Nicholas and Capital Link. Congratulations for another successful event, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here. The session after this one, we'll be talking about the Sulfur Cap 2020, which is our day-to-day. And my goal here for the next 15 minutes is to give you some insights for what's coming next, such that you'll be better prepared to make your decisions for the future. Maritime Forecast 2050. Last month, the NVGL Maritime launched into the London International Shipping Week. The 2019 version of the Maritime Forecast to 2050 as part of our energy transition outlook. So what is this? We have several different business areas in the NVGL. Some of them are directly related to energy. So what we do is every year, based on the funding that we have, that we take 5% of our revenue invested in research and development. And one of the programs that we develop is exactly this one, the Energy Transition Outlook, where each one of these business areas, maritime, oil and gas, and the electrification and renewables, we deep dive and look into the future, what are the trends based on our own experiences and our own models. And that all goes together and into one combined report called the Energy Transition Outlook 2019. These are comprehensive reports, and they are all available into the eto.nvgl.com. So I encourage you all to take a look. On the Maritime Forecast for 2050, we are focusing this year in four areas. One is the greenhouse gas regulations. The other one is decarbonization options, the world fleet CO2 outlook, and some tools that we have developed to assist our partners in navigating this complexity. The foundation for this outlook is, of course, the IMO greenhouse gas strategy launched April last year. And with the base on 2008, it has two major upcoming milestones: the intensity of 40% reduction in 2030, and the intensity reduction of 70% and total 50% in 2050, having the goal to zero emissions as soon as possible within this century. So the blue line here shows if we don't do anything, this will be the gap that we have to cover to meet the goal. This forecast, we also show the demand for seaborne transport will continue growing. This is based on the several different models. And as you can see here, the average grows above 2% per year until 2035. We can notice here that several different ship types, other cargoes, containers, continues growing. Bulk also continues growing up to more or less 2040. And the crude oil also flattening up around 2035. The main reason for this flat up is based on energy efficiency and also greater participation on the renewables on the energy matrix. We have now established what we call our CO2 barometer to give clear signs on a visual of how are we doing as an industry as a whole. And we have three basic indicators, and right now it's showing low because we still have increase in CO2 emissions. The alternative fuels uptake is slow, as you can see here, 0.3% on ships in operation and 6% on new buildings. And the regulations at the current scenario will probably not be enough to make it happen. On the space of regulations, it's also interesting to pay attention to other drivers. Like, for example, we see forward-leading charters and financiers also having the CO2 emission as a rate differentiator. So before lunch, there will be another panel for green shipping, which will be addressing this issue in more detail, so look forward for that. The decarbonization for shipping can be achieved in different ways. And here's an example. This morning it was already talked about low steaming, and there are technical aspects also that can be improved. But from what we can see, all those are important, but they have limited percentage that can contribute to the reduction of the greenhouse gases. The one that has the majority of the effect will be the fuel and energy sources that can go all the way to 100%. So that means that we are focusing on what do we need to do in order to make this viable and effective in this contribution. Right now we can see that the barriers to implementation includes cost, availability infrastructure, and onboard storage. I'll skip this one. Alternative fuels must evolve over time to increase market penetration. We see here that now finally LNG makes its way to the deep sea shipping, but DNVGL was the first class society to implement specific rules for LNG as fuel for ships back in 2000. So it took 20 years for LNG to get there. And of course, the barriers were the ones that we just mentioned, the cost and the infrastructure, etc. But it's getting there. The battery, we can say that it's already being applied in offshore vessels, mainly in the North Sea, but also now with American owners. And the batteries, we were the first one to launch the specific rules for battery power ships in 2015. So that is coming a little bit quicker. Some people say that, and we ourselves are saying here, not all the options have the potential to reach the deep sea stage. Some people say that batteries may not. I tend to say that I never say never because technology evolves. Right now, with the technology that we have, yes, batteries most likely will not make to the deep sea, but who knows? The key message here is that we have to go through these steps. It is taking too long in the past, and we need to do something to accelerate that. So what we did, we used is family types of, three main family types of the fuels, fossil, electric-based, and bio-based, to understand their characteristics, because we believe that the way forward is to have this fuel flexibility. We also heard in this morning panel the hesitation of placing new building orders. One of the reasons being the fact that we don't know what will happen if we order now with a specific fuel, if it will be competitive in the near future when technology evolves. So what we believe is that we need to find a way, and we are working together with several different engine manufacturers in order to have the fuels that are available today, the engines burning those fuels that can be able, with minor adjustments, to build different fuels moving forward. Different fuels that will be from traditional fuels to fuels with lower carbon footprints and eventually to carbon neutral fuels. So what we believe is that making that possible, it will be easier to to place orders on new buildings with an engine that will burn the fuels of today, but will be capable of also adjust for the fuels of the near future. This is a picture of the way we see it of the fuel mix towards 2050. We have several different pathways, so this is the design requirement pathways, and as known, the heavy fuel is dropping now in 2020, taken over by the low sulfur fuel and MGO, but then we see a huge uptake on LNG, somewhat on the batteries from 2030, and considerable growth on ammonia from 2035, 2040. So that will be, the way we see it, the mix for the fuels in 2050. We also developed a couple of tools to assist our partners in making their decisions the best way. This is one of them, is to assess the future competitiveness of the ships based on several different criteria, fuels and technologies, regulations, risks related to the market, and etc. Another tool is also to assess the exposure to carbon risk under these different scenarios. And again, the CO2 charter risk is addressed here, financial risk and regulatory risk. So we basically benchmark against several different possibilities. CO2 emissions could become an additional differentiator, as I mentioned before. So in a nutshell, what I would like to leave the message with you today is that the world seaborne trade continues to grow. Gas will grow even more. Shipping decarbonization is, of course, as we saw from our barometer. The uptake of alternative fuels is picking up, but needs to break through to the large ocean-going ships. All these issues, we are working together with the industry in order to facilitate and make it easier and available to the industry. In addition to the LNG, carbon neutral fuels will be needed towards 2050, and we firmly believe that bridging technology and fuel flexibility can smooth this transition from traditional fuels. Ships should be future-proof in a changing environment, securing competitiveness and mitigating carbon risks. This is the message I would like to leave with you, looking for what is in the near future, but in reality, this near future is already right now, as we heard from this morning panel as well. Decisions for new buildings today will be affected, but for the greenhouse gases emissions regulations as well. So thank you very much.